So a new form, again, project, add Windows form. We keep the form 2 as is. Click add, and now we have the form 2. And so if you want to copy everything over, we could just do that. If you expand that here, you can go back to form 1, right, and just copy. We just copy like the fruits. Yeah, just those two is fine. So, if you want more, we'll come back and grab some more, right? So go into copy those two and then go to form 2 and just paste them here. Okay, so we don't have to redesign the whole thing. And then, if you can see, the name should already be everything should be in place already, right? It's all ready to go. It's in a separate form, so it should be fine. And we need to go into form the project. Click project, go to the properties, and we need to switch the startup form to say form 2 instead of 1. Okay, so select that again in the project, chapter 8 text file, whatever that is, properties, and then change to form 2, and then just save everything. You can close this properties, and so now when we run this, it should run the second form instead of the first one. So kind of starting fresh again. Okay, we'll be see the file. It will still be inside the bin fruits. So we will read the fruits file as is, even though it has 2 with a comma. That's fine. We'll leave it as is. And so I'm going to close the form 1 and close these stuff here. The numbers can close that as well. Okay. So I'm going to double click the go button, and here in the code we're going to read the text files from that as well, so we can still do that before. You can name a string file as string, right? String as anatomy, other way around. Okay, this is going to be the fruits txt. Okay, that's the file name. We want to read it into now, before we did was you read all lines at one time. Now you want to read it one at a time. So to do that, we have to open the file first. What that means is that we have to create a new file reader, right? The StreamReader and then the StreamWriter to write file. So you could do like dim. I don't know, we let the book user in file is fine. You can call that as well. As IO dot the file StreamReader, so it's under the StreamReader. It's IO dot StreamReader. You see that here. Okay. I think there's a. If we try this, that should. Yeah, it's not. It's just a StreamReader. So now you can use this. It's an object that allows us to open in this file and read it. And then you can do, now says, you can now open the file, and file equals I think IO dot file dot open text. Yeah, open text to read it. And we're going to open what? Open the file name called fruits text. Okay. You can do it in separate lines, so you can just do all in one line, it's fine too. You can do like this, right? You just do like that, it's okay too. Okay, either way you do is fine. You're just declaring a variable name, assign it right away, or you can do it, separate line. It doesn't matter. Okay. In order for this to work, though, this file has to already exist. Okay, let's just say it doesn't. Let's just say we have like we forgot to put the S in here, and for fruit, and let's see what happens. Okay, so if you click and run, click go, you see that it crashes, right? because it said there's no fruit .txt file, doesn't exist. Okay, so you have to check, make sure it's already there in order for this to work. If it doesn't, then you have to say if the file exists. If it does, then go ahead and then read it. Otherwise, say it's not exists, right? So we just have to make sure it's there. So once we open the stream to reading, open it, now we can read it. Okay, you can read each line by line, and it will come in as a string. So if you were to, so you read this line by issuing the command endFile dot read line. Okay, you can read each line this way. So it's coming in to from the file, so we have to store that into a string, right? Dim a line, for example, as string. It will assign that to that. Okay, if we do this way, then now all we're doing is we read the first line and we're done. Okay, and so if I were to put that into a list box, so lst fruits dot items dot add, we'll add the line, right? You should see the word apple and then comma and then that 25 next to it. Let's see if that's the case. Okay, and so click run, and so here you have only just the first line of text from the file. So now we're reading one line at a time, whereas before it reads everything and you see everything here all at once. Okay, so how do you read the next line? Well, you have to do like this again. So for example, if you do this way, line, okay, you do that, and then imagine you have to do this like many times. Read the next line, read the next line, and so on. So I'm reading 3 lines. Each line I read, I add it to the list box manually like this. Right? So if you run, you see that I added apple, banana, cherry into the list box manually. Because every time I run a endFile.read line, I'm reading the next line, reading the next line. So what you can do is, instead of doing this, how do you know when to stop? Right? Or what if there's no more file to read? Then you can have an error as well. So we see something like this is repeating stuff. So you put this into a loop. Okay? And instead of doing this, I can now say, oh, okay, I can read every line as long as I have lines to read. So I can remove all of these here, and I put this inside a loop. I would say something like do. You can use until, or you can say do while. It's fine. It was like do while the end file dot end of stream. Okay. I think, how do you say this? To end of stream, and you put the word not here, right? Okay, well, it's not the end of stream of the file. That's one way, and you can put that inside a loop here. So let's see if that is true. Another way is do until. You can say do until end of stream. Maybe that is better. You can say do until end file end of stream, right? So that makes more sense if you think about it, right? That's why this is what the do until is useful for. Do until is the end of the stream. You say do while not the end of the stream, do this. So I think either way should be fine. But let's just turn this off for now, and run the first one. Okay, let's see if that is going to give us what we want. So let's start and run, and so you can see that it reads everything from the file and adds everything to the list box. Okay, it knows exactly where to stop, because the end of the stream is a special property of the file, the end file or the stream reader, and it knows when to stop. Okay, and let me just go back and change this a little bit. This is a little too big for me. Make it smaller. Okay, so that works fine. Let's comment this out and let's do the other one. Do until. This should also work until the end of file string. If it's not end, keep reading each line and adding to the list box, right? And if you run, and there it is again, right? It works either one is fine. So this one you're reading line by line, and the reason is because maybe, okay, I want to read inside here and I want to look for something, if something is in the list or not. So if you look for a name or a type of fruit or something, and if that is in the list, then you can stop reading, you can just terminate the reading, you can exit out, right? If it's not, you keep reading until you end of the file. So that's one way to use a line by line read. Okay, so when you read the first line, you got the apple here, and how do you check if it's apple? Well, you have to split the string, right? So like in here, you have to read a line. After that, you want to read and then split the line. So again, you do back to the same thing, right? You can say like data is, line dot split, comma. This is what the comma split, right? And then the first one is the fruit name, second is calorie. So if the fruit name is equal to apple, for example, then you want to stop. So you can say if, or something else, like if data of 0, because it's an array, right, is equal to, let's just say cherry. If that's the case, then we can exit the do, right? Otherwise, we will keep adding that to, otherwise we add it to the list box. So you see that once we reach cherry, it's not going to add the cherry to the list box. Just add the first two, apple, banana, and then it will stop there, because now we just said that if this cherry, then stop there. Okay, so for that particular reason, so let's see if that is the case. You can see that it stops there at cherry, because now we found that there's a cherry in the list box, in the text file, so therefore we stop there, and you don't have to read anymore from the file. Okay, and if you want to check the calories instead, if it's greater than 50, then stop, and you can do that as well. So so that gives you a little bit of flexibility, whereas the other one you read everything. If the file has a million records, you may not want to read all of them, maybe just certain records. So this one you have a lot of control. And once you are done with this reading, then you should always and file that, close it. Okay, just to be safe, so you close the stream and you don't leave anything open in there, because it's going to consume a lot of resources, just like your database. Okay? You open it, you use it, you close it, you're done. So any questions on how you read files? This is for reading line by line. Just make sure that you do a loop to read through the entire line. If you don't, you have to manually read it line by line. Okay. The end of stream here is one way. Okay, another way is to use, if I modify this loop here, let me just undo this. You can say do while, you can say, let's see, end file dot peak right here. Okay, peak is not equal, I think -1. It's kind of same thing. Well, peak is not -1. I mean, it's not the end of the file. Then you keep reading, adding to the file. So if I were to comment this out, and we use the peak instead, so you can also say do until end file that peak equals -1, right here, right? You can do that too. You can say, peak equals -1. So same thing, okay? But I'll leave that as is. Was before, and let's see if this still works. So while it is not -1, keep reading until you reach the end of the file, and it should add everything to that list box. Okay, so you can see that it worked just fine. So either way, either method should be fine. Okay, so when you read file this way, you have the option of checking the content before you continue reading. That's the only advantage you have there. It's good in most cases. If you don't really care, then don't use this method because this is too slow and too many code to write, right? Too much code. Just use the other one. Just open, read all lines, and that would do one take. So that's good. So now we're going to write this file to so as I said, we're going to write the content to another file. So notice, let's see. Yeah, I was going to read some file here and then add it to a different file, but we'll just do a simple one. So we could do something similar like we did before. I'm going to create a new array. So dim, what do we call it? Maybe languages. String equals to like things like PHP, Java, C++. Actually, that's just those three is fine. Okay, so you want to write this file of these data to a text file. Okay, so we do the same thing. We're going to create a new file. Then just say file2 is fine. This is going to be the languages.txt, and again it will create that for us automatically. So we got this for reading. You can also do one for writing. So right here I could do something like dim out file. I'll read it out to the system io.StreamWriter. Okay, and then you can do the same in one line, or you can do separate lines. Fine. Out file is going to be assigned to the io.file. You can have the append text if you're writing to an existing file, or you just put create text to create a new file, which is called the file2. Okay, so you don't care about if there's a file called file2 or not. It will just override it if there's one. If there's not, it will create one for you automatically. And we don't have that in here yet, right? So you notice there's nothing in here. And once you have the file created, and now you can start writing to the file. You're going to write this data to the file. And you could do, if you know, for example, you can do like out file dot write, right? You have this option. For example, if you put like PHP, you can manually do this way. And if I were to copy this and do 3 times, and for example, if you put like Java, I'm just manually adding these in there. So C++, for example. If you do that, you're going to write to the file. Okay, and also when you're done writing, you always make sure you close it, seal it. If you don't issue the close, it will not be written to the file. Okay, so you create a StreamWriter, open the file for reading. In this case, you're going to create a text file, and you just start writing. and then once you're done writing, close it. Okay, so let's just say we save that and start. So we click go. So nothing shows. Usually you want to say put a message saying file has been written so the user knows, right? If I stop it now and if I refresh my Solution Explorer, you'll see that the languages text is here, and if you open, you'll see that it has PHP, Java, and C++ all in a single line, right? You don't want that. You want to look like this. Okay, if you want that to look like that, then you need to use the right line. Okay, that will issue that carriage return. Otherwise, it will just append all what you have written into the single line of text, and you have this long string of text. So now, you can delete this file if you want. Doesn't matter. It's going to create one anyway. Okay, if you would have one, it's going to override it. So if I do it again now, run and go. It should be there already. Close that. Refresh, and so you can see that it has a carriage return after each of those. Okay, so that is the difference between the right and right line. Here I'm just manually write this out, right? So because we have this in an array, you could put a loop in here and write it into the text file using the loop. So you could say, like, now if you want to write everything, the easiest way is to for each, right? For each lang and languages, and then just put out file dot write line, and then put the lang in here, and you don't need that. And then once you're done, you just close the file. Just make sure you close it. And we'll add another one just to make sure that it really works. Put here like VB for Visual Basic. Okay. And if you run it now and close it, you should see that languages now has been updated to include VB. Alright, just make sure you close the file. So for example, if I wipe out everything here, okay, if I put, like, for example, let's say Google, for example, you save that in there in that language text file, and so you should wipe that out. And let's say I forgot to close it. Okay, I don't have that in there. Okay, if I save and run and I click go, done, close it, refresh, open my file, you see that there's nothing there, okay, because I forgot to close it. If you don't close it, it will create a file for you, but it will overwrite everything you had earlier in there, and it will just it won't do anything there for you. So let's say again, I have Google in there. Okay, let's save that in there. Okay, and I want to make sure I close that, right? So now, instead of create text, okay, I want to use the append text. Okay, so that difference in that just single method here will either wipe out everything you have in your current file or keep everything there, and so on. So if you want to retain or preserve what you have in the text file, use the append, and it will keep Google in there. So let's open that, right? Google will be kept, and it will just append to that. Otherwise, I put Google. I just put, like, maybe here Lua, another language. Okay, and so if I close that, go back here, and then save, change that to append text instead of the create text. Run. Okay, click go. That should be good. and refresh my file, open it, and there they are, right? So Lua is here because I didn't put the character return initially, so it appended right to what that cursor was, and it adds the other data to it. It still preserves my initial content. Okay, if you keep doing this, you just keep adding to the file. So if I keep doing this, like if I click go, right? You'll see that it has, just keep adding that to the text file. Okay, so it preserves everything there. If that's important, then you need to make sure that's the way to do it. Okay, the create and the append text, that's the major difference between the two. But as far as writing, yeah, that's fine. Also, make sure that we do the StreamWriter. Notice when we write, we're actually writing a text. Okay, writing a text. Now, if you remember the other file, form 1, if I go back into the here, when we do the read all and the write all, if you remember when we write it, you have to write, right? Write all. This has to be the file name and then the array or a string, array of strings. It cannot just be a string, it has to be an array of strings, right? So that's a major difference there. Right, so compare that to this one, we just write and then the actual string. So so not an array but the actual string. And then again close it. This is more manual thing. Again, maybe you have a reason to write this, right? So when you read an array of data, you want to only write if it's a computer language of some sort, right? If it's only let's just say it's a loosely typed or a strongly typed language, and then you write it and you write it. Otherwise, you just skip those, right? So you have those options. Not only that, you could be reading a file from another file. I could have this as okay, when I'm reading the file from the fruits, and then I want to write everything from the fruits to the text file here. So in here, so for example, like in here, when I read each file, right, instead of writing to the list box, I could also say out file dot write line and write the line from there to the fruit. But just make sure I close it down there, not up here, right? So if we do this way, for example, and I close, usually put close at the bottom here. Okay. So I'm also adding the fruits list to my file. Because I'm using the append text, it's going to append to the end of that text file. So that the file already has this many text. Let me just say I'll remove everything here. Okay, put Google in here, and then save that. Okay, so I append the languages into that file. Also down here, I'm going to add some more from the fruits file. I add each line to that file also, and then I close it at the end. Okay, so I'm reading from a different file, okay, and I'm also appending to that file. So you can see I transfer data from one file to another file this way, and I can filter out, right? If I don't want to put cherry in there, I would just say if it's cherry, don't put it in there. So you can write text files from one file to a different file, and so on. Questions? Okay, so I want to stop here with the text files. And I need to move on. We need to move on to the next two topics, and then we'll end the lecture today. So let's go to the manuscript and the multi-files. Okay, multi-forms.